Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Module 5. I know the actual module went live yesterday, but wanted to take a moment to work on this video for you. Sadly, I've been traveling for the last week. I had 2 business trips in 1 week, so it's been a busy week for me, so I apologize. But I wanted to get this video out to you to kind of go over what we're going to discuss this week. Also, so you know, grades will be completed this week. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know, but all grades will be posted by end of day today. So I've been reviewing some of you guys' work and I'm about halfway through, but I will get everything finished today. So let's talk about week 5. Week 5 is all about prompting and creativity. And I feel like for the first 4 weeks, we've spent a little bit of time understanding what generative AI is, how it works, the ethics behind it, the concerns behind it, and how to effectively use it. Well, now it's time to shift gears because now we're going to get into the actual use of generative AI. All right. Now, everyone wants to know about all the things we can do. And I think it's really important to understand that. But to be able to do that, we have to know how to get the most out of our AI. So we're going to start this week, and it's going to be all about prompting and creativity. So we last week explored how to handle the limitations of AI, hallucinations, fact checking, what happens when AI gets it wrong. But now we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're looking at what happens when AI gets it really right. And that's going to be because of you. Okay. Your ability to craft clear, powerful, and creative prompts is what transforms AI from a generic tool into a collaborator, a partner. And that happens whether you're writing an email, building a brand, researching a topic, or generating art. The results you get depends on the instructions that you give. Now, today we're going to break down how to prompt with precision. We're going to remix AI output creatively, and we're going to iterate like a pro. That iteration is my favorite part. So let's talk about what prompting is really. Prompting is more than just typing a question into a chatbot. And I think it's important to understand that because for years we've been on tools like Google. And on Google, it's just that. We type a question and then we sort through all the information to get the response that we feel meets our needs. In AI, though, we have to think about it like we're giving directions to a very, very literal assistant. The more structured, the more detailed, and the more clear our request, the better the result will be. There's 3 levels of prompting. There's basic prompting, which is write me a paragraph about climate change. Well, that's going to give you a very broad kind of response and paragraph. It will give you a paragraph about climate change, but it won't be the best possible paragraph. Then we're going to talk about structured prompting, okay? And this is where you start to get into act as a science teacher, summarize the key causes of climate change in 3 bullet points for a 10th grade audience. That's going to give you a better response. And that's where things start to get to the next level and AI starts to really show its strengths. But then we have advanced prompt engineering, which hopefully by the end of this week, you'll have a really strong grasp of. And that's where we're going to use roles, tasks, context, reasoning, steps, output formatting, and stop conditions. And they're all going to be clearly defined. An example of this is going to be in this week's reading assignment, where you have the anatomy of a GPT-5 prompt diagram. That should be your model for this week's work. So let's break it down. The first part is going to be giving the AI a role. Give it an identity. Act as a fitness coach. Act as a professor. Act as a VP of academics. All of these are going to be different in the role and in the way that it responds. If you type in act as a fitness coach versus act as a therapist, act as a marketing consultant, they're all going to give different tones, voice, and perspective to what it responds with. The second thing that we have to look at is the task, okay? Be clear on what you want. You want to avoid vague requests, and it's important that we do that. because ChatGPT is predictive. Gemini is predictive. All of these AI models are predictive. So if there's something that you want, it's going to look at the general mass and calculate, oh, most likely they want to see this. But if you're very specific on what you want, create me a 5-day-a-week workout plan with 5 exercises and the suggested amount of reps for each exercise, it will give you a much different response than just saying, give me a workout plan. The clearer the tasks are, the cleaner the output's going to be. Now, the next thing that we need to consider is context, and that's where we're going to add some helpful background information. Now, this could be limitations, it could be preferences. In a marketing environment, you could say that the client is targeting busy parents on Instagram, or use body weight only exercises, no gym needed. Context keeps the output relevant. Now, the next step is going to be reasoning. And this is where you ask the AI to follow a thinking process. This gets a little bit different. So you could do something like vet each result against CDC guidelines, or cross-check each quote with a reliable source, provide citations for all references. And then we finally get to the fun part where we decide the output format. And this is where you specify how you want the response structured. Return the results as a table with 4 columns. Summarize each idea in a bullet point with 1-line description. Or even now with Claude, you're able to say, hey, complete this in a Word document and give it back to me. So formatting helps you scan, reuse, or present content more effectively. All right. Let's see, final steps is where you get to your stop conditions. And in your stop conditions, that's when you get to tell the AI when it's done. For instance, you could give it a task and it could say, find me local Italian restaurants in the city of New York. Well, if you were to do that, you'd get a ton of responses. But if you were to say, find the top 3 recommended Italian restaurants on Yelp, you would have a very different response, right? You could fine tune it and give it a place where it can finally stop. Another example of that would be to say something along the lines of, do not suggest anything requiring travel outside of California. And the point of creating stop conditions is that they avoid bloated and meandering responses. As we all know, generative AI can be a bit verbose when responding. So these are kind of the key conditions that help you structure a student level output versus a professional grade output. So let's review them one more time. What we're looking at is we have to give the AI a role. We have to give it a task, context, reasoning, the output format, and finally stop conditions. So what comes next? Well, there's this concept of remixing AI, and you can get into some creativity. So once you've written a good prompt, you've gotten a solid output, our job isn't over. We have to think about how we can remix those responses. So a couple of things that I always like to look at is tone shifting, okay? So once I have the output that I'm comfortable with, I'll say, now rewrite this in a more casual tone. Target this message to a Gen Z audience. Target this message towards a peer group of grad students. This is really important, especially if you're using it for marketing, social media, or adapting professional content to a target audience. The other thing we can do is format flipping. So we could say something like, turn this list into a story and summarize this story as a bulleted checklist, right? So you can change formats as you go. And you do this to match your target audience's needs. The other part that I think is always helpful is what's called a perspective change. So you could say, if, for instance, if you're writing something for marketing, rewrite this as if you're the customer, okay? And I like this one for a specific reason. It helps to reveal blind spots, biases, or creative new angles that we didn't think of. Oftentimes, when we approach a task, we have a preconceived notion of what we want. Well, the great thing about generative AI is that we can use it as a creative partner, and it's able to show us angles that we may not have considered or missed. This isn't a replacement for your original thought, but it augments it and allows you to refine it in ways that you hadn't thought of before. So every prompt is a starting point. Remixing it lets you sculpt the result into something that sounds more like you. The next thing we want to talk about is our assignment for this week. This week, we're going to apply all of this in your writing assignment. So we're going to create our own complex prompt modeled after the GPT-5 prompt anatomy. We're going to label and explain each component. And then from there, we're going to submit your original and your revised prompts, the differences in your AI responses, and a brief reflection. So think of this as your prompt portfolio. It's a snapshot of your growth in this course. So I want you to take this opportunity to be creative, to be specific, and to be bold, okay? Here's some things that you could try. You could plan a road trip. You could write a cover letter. You could design a workout plan for a client with a health condition. You could recommend books to a reluctant reader. You could create a weekly dinner plan for $50 with a 30-minute time limit. The key to all of this, though, is to remember that structure equals better AI results. So, in conclusion, I want everyone to recognize that prompting is a skill that gets better with use. The more intentional you are, the more powerful AI becomes. And this is not a replacement for your thinking, but it's a partner in your creativity. This week is your opportunity to take control of your prompts, learn to shape AI into a co-creator, and to build one of the most in-demand skills in the coming digital economy. I can't wait to see what you create, and I look forward to all of your responses this week. So at this point, head over to the assignment, explore the prompt structure, start experimenting, engage in the discussion board, and always remember that if the first response is not what you were looking for, you can always reprompt, you can always remix. So let's create something amazing this week. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a great week.